This video is part of a larger show I do called Earth's Mightiest Comics. I host that with my co-host Sebastian, and we talk about lots and lots of Marvel Comics. Right now, we are currently working our way through the 60s, and I think it's a lot of fun. If you are interested in getting those episodes much earlier than they go up on YouTube, you can visit our website, which I will link in the description, and you can listen to them all there for free. Before we really get into this, I'm going to try to make this review as spoiler-free of a review for Birds of Prey as I possibly can. That being said, if you haven't watched the movie, maybe don't watch this, because I am going to briefly touch on how much screen time some of the characters have. So if you consider that to be a spoiler, then you probably don't want to watch this. That being said, this is information that I would probably want to know if I was going into this fresh. So the choice is up to you. Let me get this out of the way right off the bat. Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn is one of the worst fucking titles for a movie in recent cinematic history. Like, why is it so fucking long? It just doesn't roll off the tongue at all. Like, while I was writing this paragraph for the review, I had to double check that I got the title right, and I found out that I missed a fucking word, because it's so damn long. Why not just call it Birds of Prey? That's so much catchier, and people have just been abbreviating it as that anyway. And like, I know from a marketing perspective, they wanted to make sure casual moviegoers knew that Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn was in the movie, since there were probably a lot of people who didn't see the trailers. And Harley was one of the only things that people liked about Suicide Squad. So like, I get wanting to make sure people know she's in this, but in that case, why not just call it Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, or something like that? That is so much catchier. If anything, I think this speaks to the larger marketing problem of this movie, which is, I did not see very much press for this movie, and the only reason I actually ended up seeing any trailers for this movie at all was because I was actively looking for them. It feels to me that they did not push this movie very hard. But, rant aside, I actually did quite enjoy this movie, and I think it's definitely worth a watch. DC has had a bit of a hot streak lately. They've had 3 straight movies prior to this that were pretty well received from both a critical/fan and financial perspective. To me, Birds of Prey keeps the good streak going, while still being saddled with some pretty major issues. I don't think this movie will be quite as popular as something like Shazam was last year, but I did have a hell of a fun time watching this film. Now, this movie is nowhere close to being perfect. It has a hell of a lot of issues, mostly having to do with the story itself. The film overall follows Harley Quinn, who has recently split from the Joker, as she's out on her own for the first time in many, many years. This kicks off a series of events that leads to her being embroiled in this big heist scheme being led by Ewan McGregor's Roman Sionis, also known as Black Mask. That premise isn't really breaking any exciting new ground in cinema, and it plays out in a fairly standard fashion. It's certainly not a terrible plot, I don't think, by any stretch, and I don't think it really holds the movie back, but it's nothing special. However, what does kind of bog the movie down is its pacing. This movie is paced really weirdly. The first 2/3 of it are pretty drawn out and methodically paced, which kind of has mixed results for me. There were some character scenes, one in particular that I really liked, but there were others that I found really unnecessary and just, in some instances, just straight up boring. Thankfully though, I've only found there to be about 2 or 3 scenes that I really wasn't a fan of, but in the last 20 to 30 minutes of the movie, they just decided to mash all the various pieces of the film up to that point together, leading to a very rushed final act. Now, I think the final act in and of itself was actually really fun. I had a blast with it. But the connection between the second and third acts was strangely fast, leading to a very disjointed feel within the movie itself. The climax caught me very off guard, not because of anything that happened in the climax itself, but because it just came out of nowhere when I thought there was still a fairly substantial amount of the movie left. I should also say this isn't really a Birds of Prey movie. This is a Harley Quinn solo movie. Most of the Birds of Prey do at least appear for a fair bit of time, with the exception of one, but they don't really team up until like the very end. And when they do, it just kind of turns into a team up with no real development or build up to that point. This isn't even inherently a bad thing, but it is kind of weird and jarring when you go in expecting it to be more of a Birds of Prey movie than just a Harley movie. As for the Birds of Prey themselves, they're pretty hit or miss for me. For instance, I think Harley and Black Canary are both really, really great. I liked Huntress alright, but we saw so little of her that it was kind of difficult for me to get a fully formed opinion on her. However, I wasn't a fan of the other two. Renee Montoya just never clicked with me. I don't know if it was the performance or the portrayal of the character as a whole, but I just never really bought into the character. However, the worst character by far in this movie is Cassandra Cain. To be fair, I don't know much about her character, or really many of the others in this movie. Despite my video series with Sebastian, exclusively where we just talk about comics, I am much more familiar with Marvel, and I only really have a passing knowledge of DC. But I do know that Cassandra is a lot cooler of a character in the comics than she is here. But even moving past just the characterization itself, I thought the performance by Ella J. Basco just not good. I didn't think I didn't like it. The character came off as very obnoxious and irritating, and every time she was on screen, I found myself enjoying the movie less and less. The movie does have a lot to like, though. For one thing, there are some fucking incredible performances. I already briefly mentioned Janice Smollett-Bell's Black Canary and Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, but I do feel like I need to talk about Margot's performance more in depth. I cannot give her enough praise for her portrayal as Harley Quinn. She's really, really good. She's incredible in this part. I haven't seen Suicide Squad, so when I saw the trailer for this movie, I thought her character was going to really irritate me because it didn't seem like it was going to click with me. And it does range into that territory a bit in the earlier parts of the movie, but I ended up settling into it much more than I thought I would, and they managed to pull the level back every time it was really starting to get obnoxious. And there was actually eventually a point about halfway through the movie where Harley was talking to Sandra in a more emotional scene where I found the character actually fully clicking with me, and from that point on, I was fully on board with it. I cannot talk about great performances, though, without at least mentioning Ewan McGregor as Roman Sionis / Black Mask. I don't really know much about Black Mask from the comics either, but either way, I really love this character. McGregor was clearly having just a blast in the role, chewing the scenery with this type of manic glee. Seeing him on screen was usually a lot of fun, with the exception of the scenes where he suddenly flips and does some things that are really just truly disturbing. That all lends weight to the fact that this guy is insane. And it means that even though McGregor is a lot of fun to watch most of the time himself, it doesn't range too far into campiness because it does pull back and show how much of an evil psychopath he really is, which I think is a really good thing to kind of portray that balance. The other thing I really enjoyed in this film was the action. Now, this film had someone who worked on the John Wick films also helping out here, and it shows. The action is super stylized while also being very brutal. Like, the hits feel like they really land, and there's some truly creative stuff in there. If I had one complaint about the action, it's that it tends to overuse slow motion in the first half, but that problem gets remedied in the final action sequence, certainly. The action does sometimes tend to get over the top in a way that sometimes made me think, I don't think that's physically possible. But the action was so damn fun that I didn't really care, and there were two action sequences in particular that I really, really loved. I really appreciated that there wasn't just a big gray CGI smash fight to end the movie, and they instead chose a more creative route with the action. I hope this movie makes money, because I genuinely would like to see a sequel to this, although, to be honest, I have no idea where that would go. I just want to see a movie where the Birds of Prey are actually formed up for a good chunk of the movie, instead of just being thrown together randomly at the end. I'm not sure if that'll end up happening, as audience response seems to be pretty divided on the film, and it leaves off at a spot where it would make sense if they just ended it there. I would say if you like Harley Quinn, and you're on the fence about this movie, I would give it a shot. From a quality perspective, I'm going to give it like a 7, although I could drop it down to like a 6.5 or a 6, but if I were rating this on purely an entertainment scale, I would rate it much higher. But what did you think of Birds of Prey? Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section below. This weekend, my Earth's Mightiest Comics co-host Sebastian and I will be doing a longer breakdown of our thoughts on the movie, so if you're interested in that, stick around. We've got a show called Earth's Mightiest Comics as well, where every episode we talk about 10 Marvel comics from the past and break them down. Those are primarily on our website right now, which I will make sure to link in the description if you are interested. If you enjoy the video, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell if you want to be notified of when new videos come out, or not, it's up to you. Besides that, thanks for listening everyone, and I will see you next time.